Welcome to the new Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news on the local Colorado economy and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host, Chris Gorog, brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. Chris is personable and opens up with our guests on issues we all would like to see addressed. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's new Cyber Frontier.
Before we get started here, we wanted to bring to your attention that October is National Cybersecurity Month. And in celebration of such, there's several great events going on here. And local here to Colorado Springs, if you're in town, please come to the Cyber Synergy at Colorado Technical University. It is the second annual, and we have helped with a lot of the great guests and topics that you've heard on New Cyber Frontier, as well as many other things. If you want to hear the latest of what's going on in cybersecurity, you got to come check this out. It's open to the public, free, 4:30 to 7:30 on October 25th. We hope to see you all there and shake some hands with a lot of the great guests that you've heard right here on New Cyber Frontier. See you then.
Hello, this is Abe Thompson on the New Cyber Frontier here, coming to you from the Secure Set studios here in Colorado Springs. Secure Set is a cybersecurity boot camp where I work. I have the privilege today of having on as our guest Mr. Paul Parker, who is the Chief Technologist for Federal and National Government at SolarWinds. Hello, Paul. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing wonderful. How are you today?
Splendid. We were talking a little bit before we went live about your love for Colorado Springs here, and it is a fairly balmy day. Got some breeze out there, and you said you like to frequent this. So, Paul, here on the podcast, obviously we like to talk about sort of the issues of the day in the cybersecurity space. You and I had a bit of a discussion before we went in on cybersecurity simplicity and how that's often overlooked. So I'll definitely want to get to that. But first, tell me a little bit about the mission of SolarWinds and sort of your piece in the mosaic.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I appreciate you having me on today. And I am talking to you from what I will say is an extremely hot but beautiful Palm Springs, California, where I would rather be in Colorado Springs because today's high is expected to be about 111.
Oh, my.
So, yes. So SolarWinds, anyway, we've got about 250,000 customers worldwide right now in 170 countries. We focus on everything from the small and medium-sized businesses all the way up to Fortune 500. We actually cover 425 of the Fortune 500 as an existing customer today, and we're installed at almost at every civilian or intelligence agency out there in the government spaces. So one of the things that I do is I focus primarily on the government market. We do have a very large federal component, and that team is built of people who understand what it's like to work in that market space, work with those customers, and just have a very good background in all of the requirements that don't necessarily make sense to everybody else in the world.
Sure.
Commercial spaces.
Yeah, we definitely see that.
A couple of things about us. We are headquartered out of Austin, Texas. Our federal headquarters is actually out of Herndon, Virginia. But primarily what we focus on is, I'll say, monitoring and management of a network. Network being a very completely arbitrary term, which means something completely different to everybody.
Yep.
But anything that's going to plug into that network, it needs to be accessed by people as a resource. So desktops, servers, storage, switches, routers, you name it, APCs, air handlers. If it's going to have an IP address on it that's capable of sending traffic, we're more than happy to take traffic from it and help build you a map of what your environment looks like.
Splendid. You talked a little bit leading into this in our discussion about IT controls and that being a critical space for you. Unpack that a little bit for me.
Sure. I apologize. You said the controls around an IP address?
IT controls, as you mentioned earlier.
Oh, IT controls. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's really quite simple. You news regularly, I talk about the idea of investing a lot of money in building this super secure Fort Knox type facility and then just leaving the door open. You can look at a lot of the breaches that have occurred recently. The most significant ones being things like OPM, being Equifax, and all of those really come down to lack of simple basic IT controls.
Sure.
It had nothing to do with the $40 million cyber security suite that was installed, and everything to do with something as simple as installing a patch, which hopefully our parents can still manage to do at this point. I really do try to talk to people about keeping it simple.
Sure.
Let's just talk about the simplicity of it, because it's real easy to start getting into software-defined everything and Internet of everything. But at the end of the day, it really is just the day in the life of a packet on a network.
Right. Well, and you talk about people that are ignoring these simple best practices. You're validating the weakest link being, unfortunately, a lot of the individuals therein. But what you're also talking about is being a culture changer. One of the things I focus my students on is becoming culture changers when they enter into their organizations to establish a security culture, and that does really start with some very simple things. Would you be willing to take a shot at, say, the top 5 best practices that are often ignored?
Yeah, absolutely. And the spaces that I come out of, especially the national intelligence programs, there's kind of this overwhelming responsibility of security as everybody's concern. And I think we need to do a better job of training people, within our corporate environments, within our government environments, and just hammering into everybody that, see something, say something. That doesn't mean, some sketchy looking foreign national holding a package with a bunch of wires. Absolutely, you want to call the authorities if you see something like that. But it could also be, escalating when you see somebody doing things on the network that, don't follow policy, don't follow procedure, or possibly expose you to vulnerability.
Yeah, we're not creating a snitch culture, right? We're really simply, objectively just taking these various simple security practices and putting them on the table and analyzing whether or not we've been faithful to them.
Yep, and it's funny because a lot of computer folks tend to have an adversarial relationship with their information assurance team.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the IA team's job is really just to do risk mitigation. They're not trying to make our lives difficult. They're not trying to make us spend money on products that we don't necessarily want. But what they're really trying to do is garner visibility into something that traditionally we've tried to hide a lot of.
Sure.
People didn't want to say, hey, I'm running a NT4 Service Pack 4 server, and that's what everybody is doing to log in every day. Well, why hasn't it upgraded? Well, I could give you 1,000 reasons why we haven't upgraded it. We didn't have the money to buy new servers. We didn't have a Microsoft license. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like not wanting to expose your own flaws.
Right.
And you almost have to bare your soul.
And a lot of the movement in the cybersecurity industry today is hoping to get us there to, where are the safe places? I know National Cybersecurity Center has had some focus on that in the past and others, but where is that safe place for us to put that sort of maybe anonymous dirty laundry out there so that it can still be addressed and not hidden in the back recesses, and therefore no one benefits. And I think certainly you're alluding to some of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you shouldn't be afraid to call yourself out for what you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
People don't wake up, and I say this all the time, assume noble intentions. You don't wake up and go, today is the day that I'm going to try to get fired, I'm going to disappoint my boss, and I'm going to screw up the enterprise environment. No, I mean, more than likely it's somebody who's doing the best of their ability on any given day, but they may have concerns like, they were up all night with a sick child, or they're caring for an ailing parent, or there's things that are going on in their life, or at the absolute worst, nobody ever bothered to explain and train.
Sure, definitely. Some pretty simple things. If you would, Paul, talk to me about the role of the chief technologist and sort of what keeps you busy day in and day out?
Yeah, absolutely. So my role really is to be focused on the needs of our federal and national government customers. I throw national government in there because that also covers government outside of U.S. boundaries.
Interesting.
Things that, are out there, certifications. Let's, talk about FIPS 140-2 or Common Criteria or NIST, 800-53 or FedRAMP or all of these wonderful things that are, quote-unquote federal job creation programs for every new certification that gets issued. But the typical, corporate world doesn't understand or necessarily know to care about. There's this really wonderful and interesting scenario there where a lot of times the commercial spaces will follow the lead of the government. I mean, we look at NIST and the recommendations that come out of there as a perfect example of that. So my job is really to, I'll say, act as a translator between government language and corporate language and find a way to make sure that the company understands what's important to our customers and why it's important and why we need to develop down certain paths. And then likewise, take a lot of the things that we're doing, which are really cool and flexible and fast and agile, that don't necessarily happen inside the government, and translate those same sorts of concepts and thoughts and ideas to them. Because, one of the things that we routinely see and actually comes up in our annual cybersecurity survey is just a complete lack of training.
Yeah.
People don't necessarily get the budgets. They don't have the mandates. Your boss fairly, I'll say I'm fairly certain, doesn't ever say, hey, I need you to take a week off work and go get smarter,
When really he
and why don't you do that? I'm going to pay for that. I'm going to pay for your hotel. We're going to send you anywhere you want. These aren't the conversations that happen. So, training generally doesn't occur inside of work like that, and then it's on the individual to do the training outside of work. But as I said, there's an onus on there that says, hey, I do have a life outside of work. I can spend some time training myself, but I can't be a full-time student.
Right. Well, and you're talking about another sort of workforce issue in an industry where we have a negative unemployment rate. Do you think that maybe some of these organizations don't feel the pressure to provide those, not just incentives, but really the training is lifeblood? Do you think companies just feel like they can get away with it?
Having worked as a contractor before and things like that, I noticed that there's not always that encouragement that says, hey, look, this is a benefit that we're offering to you as an employee. If I said, do you want a $10,000 raise, you wouldn't tell me no. So if I'm offering you $10,000 in yearly training, why aren't you coming to me and begging for it?
Right. And so there's an education
but from
piece.
a company perspective, then you multiply that out by the size of your organization. Say you're 2,000 employees or you're 2 million employees. That cost can grow exponentially, which affects the bottom line, which can affect everything down to EBITDA or how the stock market reacts to you. So, I can understand from a fiduciary responsibility angle, but at the other side of that, people should also maintain their marketability. And I think an employer has a certain level of responsibility for that as well.
I think there's a lot missing in that strategic long view, and you've kind of highlighted that. We were talking a little bit about how SolarWinds has really been proactive in the industry in terms of acquisitions and kind of the strategic portfolio that you put together, particularly in the cloud, and then what you look for in terms of user value. You talked about also putting the right tools out there in the market. How does that fit into your business strategy?
It actually goes really well. At the end of the day, we really want to provide simple, effective, and cost-effective solutions to our users.
Sure.
I have a strong belief in everything needs to be scalable, it needs to be secure, it needs to be flexible, and ultimately it needs to find a way to be automated.
Sure.
simply because we're dealing with more and more tasks every day and less people to handle them.
Thank you, Paul. Let's quickly go to hear from our sponsors.
Over 3 million data breaches happen every single day. That's over 2,000 records being compromised every minute. So often, we focus on securing web data access. But what if the attackers are already inside, having gained direct access to your storage through data management software? When it comes to communications that go directly into your storage devices, make SNIA your first line of protection. SNIA's conformance testing limits outdated communications that are known to be used by attackers. It works continuously behind the background to make sure your storage is protected. To find out if your data is truly secure, visit our website at www.snia.org/cybertest.
And we're back on New Cyber Frontier. This is Abe Thompson from SecureSet here in Colorado Springs with our guest, Paul Parker, who's the Chief Technologist for the federal and national government components of the SolarWinds company. You're just talking about how you're bringing value to your customers, and you're talking about scalable, transportable tools. Another word that often comes up in that discussion is interoperability. Can you talk to me about what SolarWinds has brought to the marketplace in terms of improving interoperability between tools? You mentioned the bigger challenges really between different clouds.
Yeah, so, I'll say a federal CIO who shall remain unnamed told me about a year ago, he said, I don't need more tools. I've got plenty of tools. What I need are the ones that I have to work together.
Yeah.
Which is extremely important. There's no lack of vendors coming in on a day-to-day basis trying to separate people from their payroll.
Sure.
Hey, let's turn that into acquisition money. Here, let's go out and buy this new software, this new appliance, this new whatever. But are you really getting the value out of the things that you already have today? So interoperability for me, it's actually two different levels. One is that we need to be, I'll say, open and shareable. So, doing things like REST APIs or allowing people to not only put data into our system, but how can they get it back out? How can we run triggers? How can we collaborate better with technology partners and, generally work with the vendors that most of the people are working with, right? I mean, there's this old adage in networking that nobody gets fired for buying Cisco. Same sort of thing. I mean, if you're going to partner with a company, right, you can create a connector for Cisco, and odds are there's a fairly significant market that's going to be there. But, trying to do that across the various technology stacks.
Yeah.
The other part for me with interoperability is I also bring that back to our products, because we really are trying to be, I'll say, the one ring to rule them all in a nerd parlance. But, what we're doing is we're giving you a single dashboard view into everything that's in your environment, as opposed to having to log into 10 or 15 different management consoles.
Sure.
You don't need to go and get into your voice and video system. You don't need to go and get your storage system. You don't need to get your server system. You can literally just go and make it as easy as getting into your SolarWinds, and then getting the access, the roles-based access controls or granular permission sets for people who need to manage their devices.
Sure.
But when you do it on a common framework, then all of a sudden everybody speaks a common parlance, everybody starts working towards common goals, and they kind of understand and better visualize the complexity that is a net.
There are so many layers to that discussion. You talk about common framework, and having worked in government, having worked in joint military environments, which include not only U.S. but allied entities. Oh my goodness! Then you layer on multi-level security requirements and multiple systems. And what improvement have you seen in interoperability? And if you can hit some specifics, say in the last 5 years, what have been the major watershed moments?
In terms of interoperability, I would say just people understanding and recognizing that you really need to go with an API-based architecture.
Mm-hmm.
There's some really, really cool things that, we could even have an entire hour-long discussion about things like containerization and orchestration of the containers. But a lot of that really boils down to, how do we write better applications, and then how do we expose that to the customer so that they can get better reuse out of it.
Okay. And then specifically on because this is a major issue government-wise, and we deal with this across the spectrum, the multi-level security. So you're talking about different levels of classification and those challenges. What are some solutions that allow interoperability or sort of a cross-platform utility for some of the tools?
So, from a multi-level access, it's really kind of a funny conversation to have, because you could go into every single agency and ask them, what they allow and what they don't allow, and you'll get different answers each time.
Of course.
One could be, if it originates on the high level, then it can, transfer to the low level, and then, be bidirectional. One would say, no, we don't allow it to go high to low. We can allow it to go low to high, but that can't be bidirectional. So, it's also understanding that and necessarily why people would want it. But I think we also need to work a little bit better with some of the security people and bring them closer into the IT realm so that I'll say the prevailing paranoia can go away. Let's make sure, you can trust but, validate everything, right? Make sure that the data that is traversing is only the data that is expected to be there. So when we say, look, open this port for bidirectional traffic, this is only what's going to occur and this is how it does occur. But you got to be able to explain the whole process to them in the first place.
Sure.
And then you have to allow them, the opportunity to come in and validate that it's operating as expected.
Right. Talk to me specifically about your product and how SolarWinds has made the difference.
Wow, that's definitely a difficult topic to cover. How are we making a difference? I think we're making a difference every single day, and that shows with our customer success rate.
Sure.
With the customer satisfaction. Believe we're running somewhere around a 98% renewal on our customers and their maintenance, which generally means that, look, we're providing good products and we're providing good value, and that ultimately they're satisfied with it. We have our SWAC, community site for nerds, THWACK, and that's now celebrating its 15th year. But that's the social media platform for SolarWinds customers to go and interact with one another. And a lot of time, energy, and effort is spent on making that platform fun and easy to use as well.
Sure.
You can go on there and play trivia games every day, earn points, and then use those points to get free SolarWinds swag.
Does that also then provide you a resource for unique talent coming into the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. And the great thing is that regardless of role, everybody in the company is interacting with our customers on a day-to-day basis. We're not shielding ourselves and hiding from the criticism. Not avoiding the questions. You can go on there and post something and get a developer or a program manager or a product owner or somebody to respond to you very quickly in there.
Good.
But also the great part is when other users will respond and go, I had that same problem and here's how I fixed it.
Perfect. Do your program managers, developers, etc., feel a lot of freedom in the organization to respond based on some uniform talking points, or how does that usually play out?
Yeah, everybody has their responsibility to the organization, to treat it fair, not release things that aren't releasable.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to provide the best customer service that we can.
Well, and that transparency always wins.
And I apologize, there is also a section in there called What We're Working On.
Oh, cool.
And that's where the product owners will go in there and post hey, here's what we're looking at doing in the next 6 months with this product.
Definitely. On an earlier show, I had talked with our regular host, Chris Gorog, just about sort of the impacts of GDPR, and given your role in federal and national, which also extends beyond our borders, How is SolarWinds kind of either responding or have you been proactive in the change that has now come with regard to working with entities in Europe?
No, I mean, we have a very large European base. Actually, our national government office is based out of Cork, Ireland. However, I will say we were extremely proactive. Our CIO, Ronnie Johnson, had a team focused on strictly GDPR compliance. That training was rolled out company-wide. You know, it wasn't as simple as just an email. It was actually training for everybody on, you know, when does it apply, how does it apply, what are your responsibilities, you know, when can you or can't you contact individuals. And, you know, we absolutely did meet our deadlines and mandates as required to be able to do business over there.
That's great news. When we think about that tsunami that swept in, not necessarily to poke fun at others, but what have others in the industry perhaps missed in terms of implementing and being ready for the impacts of GDPR?
It's across the board. You know, there's a lot of companies that have completely complied with GDPR, and there's other ones that I'm dealing with that literally still are dipping their toe in the water and don't even understand it, which kind of scares me from a penalty perspective, because you know, if you're familiar with the GDPR penalties, they're quite severe.
Massive, yeah, definitely. So being proactive for you meant what? Did you have to immerse yourselves in the language of the quote-unquote legislation, or was it more about partnering with some of the major corporations abroad?
So, you know, I would say, and you know, I don't necessarily want to speak on Ronnie's behalf for this, but it was a little bit of everything there. I mean, you know, systems that, you know, within our back office that needed to be changed, or processes that needed to be revamped. Those both absolutely come into play here.
Sure.
But then there is also understanding the language, and there is the working with the customer base. It's understanding that, you know, as strange as it may sound, but a U.S. citizen on a U.S. base, you know, over in the UK, for example, is able to get GDPR protections.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know, it's not necessarily about, you know, who's over there. It's about the fact that it is over there.
Location.
You know, or I'll say an English national who comes over here to the U.S. and what GDPR protections apply to them, because they still hold a passport for the UK.
Sure. Speaking about the future and sort of what's on the horizon, what do you see as the next big thing?
For SolarWinds or for technology as a whole?
Let's go with SolarWinds first.
SolarWinds as a whole, you know, is, I will say, an extremely exciting future. I myself have been with this company just a little bit less than a year now. But, you know, I came over to a very large organization that was doing a significant number of transactions. As I said, had a massive customer base, and realized that, you know, it was still largely untapped, and there's so much more that's out there for us to be able to do. Some of that's going to be with products that you know, I can't necessarily talk about because they haven't been announced yet. Some of that's going to be with just continuing to enhance the current product offerings that are out there. And really kind of following with our mantra of, you know, management and monitoring, whether on-prem or off-prem, whether you want to go with traditional IT or you want to go with cloud-based IT. You know, again, making it flexible and making it secure.
Sure. And you mentioned earlier, of course, the complexity becomes that much more enormous in cloud-based solutions, for sure. And then sort of broaden it out. What do all of us have to be ready for next in the sort of the cybersecurity realm?
From a cybersecurity realm, I think the biggest thing is really just continue to be aware of the threats that are out there. Every time you hear of a breach, I would encourage everybody to go read about the breach. You know, finding out that my OPM information was leaked was terrible. Finding out that my Social Security and credit history and everything else got leaked was terrible. But ultimately, let's go find out why it occurred, and hold companies accountable for those breaches. Like I said, it really comes down to a lot of simple things. IP management strategy. We have an IP address management product out there, but how are you tracking the devices that are on your network? Forget IoT. You can't track simple devices.
Right.
Do you have mobility strategies built into there? Do you have a way to analyze the traffic? Computing just keeps getting cheaper and faster, and as a result of that, though, I think people are also a lot lazier about it now. My disk is full. Well, let's get another disk.
Yeah.
Why? Because disk is a lot cheaper than sitting there trying to figure out what's consuming, the 500 gigs of free space you used to have.
Yeah, and that inertia toward sloth in this realm is so counter to necessity. We have to become more and more proactive because adversaries and those that would have ill intent are that much more agile. Not to mention just the enormity of data sets brings with it sort of the enormity of the problem. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my privilege to have Mr. Paul Parker as a chief technologist from SolarWinds speaking with us this fine day. Paul, it's been a delight to have you on board, and especially to even hear your war cry to go back to the basics in cybersecurity best practices.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I've definitely appreciated it. If you want to reach out and touch base, I have plenty of opinions I can offer on any sort of topic.
That sounds wonderful, and I'm sure we'll look to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Abe Thompson here at SecureSet here in Colorado Springs, coming to you on the new cyber frontier. It's been a pleasure to have you with us. Good day.
The views or opinions expressed during this podcast are not those of Colorado Technical University.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember to get involved. Often we think that someone else will handle privacy and security in the virtual world, but you are the only one truly in command of your virtual fate. Join our mailing list so we can keep you informed of breaking news and new releases. If you have an idea, if you have a question that you would like to hear answered, or if you want to get involved with our efforts, reach out to us at newcyberfrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors' links, as they are the ones that really make this show possible. I want to thank each of you for supporting the show, and we look forward to seeing you back for the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.